you're getting those two.
Nailed it. Homebound Arc. We had now been sitting for another 4 hours, each passphrase attempt still failing as much as the last. The sun was beginning to crest over the surrounding hills, sending dagger rays of golden light into my eyes. Circe continued to plow through the books like they were children's stories, despite the fact that she had now moved on to my old AP World textbook, having finished calculus of a single variable and the Bible in the past 2 hours. About another hour in, she suddenly spoke up softly, tired, pink eyes glancing to me as I slumped hopelessly over the computer.
What is your favorite book?
She distractedly spoke, fingers still turning pages. I stopped mid-phrase, fingers coming to rest on the keyboard. I slowly turned to glance at her. What? I questioned, sleepy eyes blinking away tears. She turned back to her book, as if pretending it didn't happen.
I was simply asking which of these books you like best.
She shrugged, refusing to look at me.
I was just curious. Forget about it.
Okay. I staggered, suddenly feeling my phone vibrate. I pulled it out, only to feel my heart stagger into my ribs. Shit, I hissed under my breath. Circe's eyes glanced to me, narrowing on the device in my hand.
What are you doing with that?
She hissed, swinging her legs off the desk and peering over my shoulder. I instinctively flinched away, shielding the screen from her prying eyes. As soon as I did this, I felt a hard crack of her heel against my shin. I coughed in agony, quickly apologizing. Sorry, I'm not telling anyone anything. I cringed, tilting the screen towards her. I promise. See? I kinda...
Who is Penny?
Circe narrowed her eyes.
What is this meeting she's talking about?
I breathed. I kinda promised her we could do something after school. My heart stopped. What about school? I stammered. I mean, I have that today. Am I being called absent or something? I know it's not the most important thing at the moment, or important at all, but if this takes much longer, people will start to wonder.
Call off this meeting with Penny.
Circe spoke coldly.
And you're right. School is not important. Although we have the authority, we cannot call you absent without arousing suspicion. You must simply not attend until this is over.
I gritted my teeth, slumping over in defeat, pressing my hands against the keyboard of my phone before slowly coming to a halt as I tried to type a response to Penny. What do I tell her? I turned to Circe. I mean, she'll wonder why I'm not at school. I guess I could say I'm sick or something?
That will work.
Circe shrugged.
Whatever will not cause suspicion. Also, tell her you are not interested in this meeting of hers.
Well, I stammered, beginning to type back the response. I don't want to say that. I'll just tell her I can't go because of my sickness. I feel bad for backing out last minute. Circe's brow furrowed, her arms crossing as she again put her feet up on the desk.
Sure.
She spoke coldly.
That will work as well. But you must maintain that response indefinitely until this situation resolves.
I sent the message after Circe looked it over disapprovingly, grumbling something about security, but finally agreeing. I set the phone down on the desk after she instructed me to, and turned back to the computer, feeling my sore hands beginning to blister. It wasn't 10 seconds later that Penny responded, the phone nearly jumping off the desk as it vibrated. I went to grab it only to have Circe snatch it away before I even had a chance. She flipped it open, pink eyes scanning carefully. I leaned over, seeing that Penny had simply replied, "Oh, okay. That's alright, John. Feel better." Circe seemed satisfied with this, and she leaned back casually, tossing her book aside and beginning to rummage through my past messages instead. My chest tightened instantly, panic overtaking me as I tried to snatch it away. "Hey!" I shouted, fighting for the device. "That's private!"
Only if you have something to hide,
she mumbled, fending me off easily with one hand, eyes not leaving the screen.
What? Do you have something to hide? I'm just curious, is all.
I suddenly stopped, as if being hit with a ton of bricks. I did have something to hide. I had visited the ghost town. If she looked through the messages and saw me coordinating the trip... "Circe," I cried, practically falling to my knees, "I need to tell you something." Her eyes finally left the screen, glancing curiously to me. I didn't know the facility was there," I spilled out. My friends and I were just going because we thought it would be cool to check out the ghost town. I had no idea. There was just this sudden explosion before we even got close. We didn't do anything, I swear. We left right after we began to hear gunfire. Please believe me, it was some crazy coincidence. I'm so sorry." Her eyes stared back at me, abnormally calm as she watched me grovel. She let the silence continue for several seconds after I finished spouting my frantic apology. Slowly, however, her lips began to twitch, a massive smile beginning to creep across her ghastly face as her eyes lit up. She leaned in insanely close, lips almost touching mine as she crawled from her chair into mine. Her hair quavered softly, my face erupting in red as her arms snaked around the sides of my chair.
Did you see it?
She cooed, a sudden delusional wildness splitting through her parting mouth. I gagged, utterly paralyzed as my face burned hot. What?
The angel.
She cooed, ecstatic curiosity dripping saliva from her mouth as she pressed yet closer.
Did you see it?
Angel? I squirmed, backed into my chair. What? What do you mean, angel?
The fallen angel of death.
She cocked her head to one side, her neck snapping at a horrible angle, her face splitting open further.
The devil himself.
I just stared at her, wide-eyed and terrified. She crawled off me then, shuffling at the pockets of her lab coat. She quickly wrenched out a single, badly crumpled piece of paper, shoving it in my face and unfolding it. My eyes widened. It was a printed-out photo. It was black and white, grainy and low resolution, but I could immediately tell it was taken somewhere near the facility. The ghost town was barely visible in the background. It depicted a single figure standing amongst a sea of bodies, limbs scattered like dead leaves, blood forming a lake that parted before the figure as it walked calmly forward. From the figure's back, two massive wings ruptured out like mangled corpses, hideous twisted bones visible through the winding flesh and tendons, skeletal and deformed. They looked to be constructed from the flesh of other corpses, organs and muscles stretched taut between spines and rib cages. They unfurled behind the figure, impossibly large for its small form, extending far off the screen, nearly school bus length. From above its ghastly pale head, a ring of crimson blood circled, suspended in a sloppy circle. It was crude and vile, yet undoubtedly a halo. I continued staring in disbelief at the picture for several more seconds, my mouth moving soundlessly. It was just a girl. The figure's floppy, short black hair partially obscured its face, and while it was horrifically tall and gangly, it was undoubtedly a girl. I gagged, unable to tear my eyes away from the image. The devil?
Well, we're not sure.
Circe peered over the image, snatching it away again.
This is one of the 2 images we were able to recover from the facility's damaged security cameras. Based on the timestamp, this entity materialized just outside the facility, minutes before the explosion. This image leads us to conclude that the entire staff was slaughtered before the explosion actually occurred, meaning the resulting fireball wasn't an accident. Nor was it what allowed 12 to escape. It was a cover-up, something else. There should have been no way to recover any sort of data from the cameras. The fact that we have this image at all suggests that the entity wanted us to see it.
Wanted us to see it? I echoed slowly. What makes you think?
The second photo.
Circe cut me off.
It is where the evidence for that conclusion truly lies.
She pulled out yet another crumpled piece of paper, folding it out in front of me, yet keeping a far tighter grip on it this time around. I squinted and leaned closer, my heart twisting into my throat and nearly causing me to choke. Circe wrenched the paper back away, immediately shoving it back into her pocket.
The devil left us a message.
She nodded for me, meeting my horrified eyes.
Using the blood of what I can only assume was countless people, it layered the walls of the entire West Wing with writing in several different languages.
So it posed for those pictures, I stammered, feeling my sluggish heart still caught in my windpipe. Because it wanted you, or at least someone out there, to receive that message.
Why bother leaving a message if you're just going to destroy it minutes later?
Circe nodded, again pulling out the picture of the angel of death and staring at the girl.
I can only assume whoever it is intended for will know what it means. And after we stop 12, Satan herself will be our next goal.
And that, I breathed, that thing, that isn't one of your subjects, or parasite or something? It has to be telekinetic.
The explosion resulted in a crater nearly a mile deep.
Circe fumbled with the picture.
Our strongest subject could not do a crater of that damage, and would likely kill themselves in the process. If it is a parasite, it's an entirely new breed. This entity, whatever it is nothing this world has ever seen before.
I swallowed hard.
Plus, we have reason to believe that it could travel between dimensions, which rather complicates things.
How do... I put up my finger to interject, only to sigh and just shake my head.
But if you didn't see it...
Circe's eyes cast downwards, sighing as she crumpled the paper back into her lab coat.
Then I suppose all of that probably wasn't worth telling you.
I fought to say something, anything, but nothing came out.
The point, of course,
Circe sighed, crawling back into her chair and putting her feet up on the desk,
is that you and your friends were just visiting the ghost town of Curiosity. You had nothing to do with the massacre at the facility. You couldn't be less significant in this matter. We know what did it. We just don't know what it is.
I just nodded softly.
Anyway,
Circe mumbled, continuing to search through my messages.
No need to get so uptight. Your silly concerns about your privacy mean nothing in comparison. So, get back to typing. I'm merely curious, and fed up with books that mean nothing to me.
I sighed heavily, utterly defeated. How could I possibly compete with such a ludicrous event? My life truly was meaningless. Fine, I grumbled. Just please don't answer anyone. Especially not Julie Rowe. She's been kinda creepy lately. Circe waved me back to the computer, eyes widening in curiosity as she read further and clicked through my various messages, causing my own face to flash crimson red. I swiveled back to the computer, burying my face in the keyboard. Facility Arc. Alright, I sighed. If you say so. I paused before breathing deeply, feeling my lungs expand and contract. My eyes fell to the floor before glancing to a clock on the wall. It was mere hours until the chance. I had lost a lot of time. Hey, Mari. I spoke softly, feeling her understanding eyes on me. You don't really think I have a shot, do you? She continued to look at me. I said a lot of things I shouldn't have, I breathed, looking at my uniform. I'm about to let a lot of people down. Everyone in this place seems so complacent. I just wanted to offer some kind of hope, but by promising them something I can't deliver, I may finally break their spirits for good. My hands clenched. I'm nothing, Mari. My whole life, I've been nothing but a bystander. I was wrong to make them think otherwise. I just wanted to. For once in my life. She slowly put her clipboard in front of my face. It was a drawing. It showed 3 stick figures. One of the stick figures was dismembered, little X's where its eye should have been as its skull rolled from its body. It lay in a pool of blood, ink scratched into the page in clearly exaggerated amounts. She had labeled the corpse as herself, and above it stood another stick figure, 2 massive, angel-like wings erupting from its back. As I watched, Mari slowly pointed to the angelic figure before again writing her name beside it. She nodded at me slowly, as if I was supposed to understand. I believe I killed myself, she wrote beside it, tapping the pen against the figure. Hundreds of times, she continued writing slowly. That feeling of death I spoke of. It is all I feel, and it is everything I know. Because it is me, John. Her hand moved to carve 2 curved arrows making a circle between the angel and the corpse. She then paused, steely gray eyes darkening as she curiously stared at the paper. Her hand cautiously moved to press against one of the arrows before suddenly scribbling it out and moving to draw countless more arrows branching from the angel, each ending with another corpse, again labeled as herself. I believe I kill myself every time I fail, she wrote in the margin, although I do not know why. Her hand moved to write larger as she continued, and I do not know what it is I am supposed to accomplish in this world. I can only assume I have relived these events of the coming months countless times. She softly glanced at me, again nodding as if to confirm that I was following her. I wasn't. I feel cold. She then wrote above one of the corpses, "I do not know how many times before I have failed, but I do not think I have much time left to succeed." She slowly, almost absent-mindedly began crossing out each of the branching arrows, the pen making a soft carving sound as it severed the lines in half. After crossing out the final arrow, she turned the pen to the angel, hesitating for several seconds before crossing it out as well. The halo above her shuddered, a speckle of blood hitting the page. We both sat still for a long time, her deep in thought, me too stunned and confused to say much of anything. "There are but a handful of possible futures left," she wrote more to herself than anything, nodding as she did so as if affirming it in her own head. Then, suddenly, her hand moved over to the third standing stick figure that had been there since the beginning. This one had no face. She softly drew an arrow from the angel to it. She glanced at me then, her tongue pressed against her cheek as she studied me closely and drew a crude mop of hair atop the figure before giving it dot eyes and a goofy smile. "John," she wrote beside the figure. She again paused before drawing herself next to me, a grin across her own face as she raised little stick hands. "There is, however," she wrote, "one occasion in which I remember not dying." She circled the drawing of the two of us, pen gradually carving a question mark beside it. "I do not know the events of that future," she continued, "nor what became of me." Her cavernous eyes swallowed up my vision as she scooted closer. "I once believed that surviving was my goal." She put her thoughts to the paper, "and yet, if I am still here, still in this loop, while there exists a future with such an occurrence, my survival must not be the only criteria." She flipped the paper, again drawing the two stick figures together, this time surrounded by countless question marks. The figures were both still smiling. "All I know," she affirmed, "is that the future with you in it was the closest I ever came to my goal. It's safe to say that, in most dimensions, you die well before you reach this point in time to share it with me." My eyes narrowed as her face just lit up and her arms pulled in front of her like a praying mantis or a scared fawn. She grinned. "I do not know how long it has been since I last shared a future with you in it," she wrote, "but it has likely been thousands of years, millions of useless timelines lived through in which I fail, in one way or another, only to be killed." She excitedly shook her head up and down. "Do you not see, John?" she wrote, handwriting even shakier than usual. "We again have a chance to attempt a future, to not only survive but to achieve whatever it is these timelines are striving for." Her hand slowly pushed into her uniform, pulling out a small rectangular device. It was jet black, but pulsed with horrid, gut-wrenching motions. My eyes instantly twitched, my stomach dropping in silent horror as nausea in my stomach erupted into my throat. "What is that?" I stammered, unable to look at it directly. That's when I realized I had seen it before. Or something like it. The door to the room I had first woken up in, the handle as well. Whatever material was on them was nearly impossible to look at, let alone focus on. Mari clicked something on the device, and in my peripherals I watched the air light up with flickering electricity as the device sparked to life. The energy seemed to hold an arc at one end, the sparks violently cracking with loud pops. What the hell? Was that a taser? This is a 2 million volt stun gun, Mari wrote, setting it down beside me. With enough current to kill a human with 3 seconds of continuous contact. I turned to look at it again, still having trouble focusing on it, but able to hold back my vomit as I tried to locate the switch on it. Against a godbearer, of course, however, Mari continued, it takes far more. Likely 3 or 4 shocks and upwards of 6 seconds of continuous contact, just to temporarily knock the god node offline and render the user unable to fight back. Why? I spoke slowly, still wincing, but slowly getting better at making out its form. Why is it so hard to... Why does it look like that? This technology was developed before the implementation of the Daughters, Mari wrote, for facility guards tasked with keeping godbearers in line. The reason you cannot see it clearly is because the material it is coated with contains an array of unconsolidated layers, tricking your god node into believing it is not a solid piece of matter, but rather a cluster of molecules broken down to an impossible degree. It will likely make you sick trying to determine what exactly it looks like or the kind of space it occupies, but to a normal human, it simply appears as a regular stun gun. I flinched again, slowly putting out my hand and touching it, feeling my skin crawl. The guards wore hazmat suits of the very same material, Mari continued writing, and restricted areas of the facility are often hidden behind such doors. The reason, as you may have guessed, is that the material is untraceable by godbearers. The god node is unable to effectively communicate to the host any information about it, stopping any manipulation from taking place. So, I replied, going wide-eyed, you're telling me this is... distortion-proof. You could try to distort it, Mari wrote, but attempting to move it through your god node may cause a panic response in your nervous system. You could black out for several hours. Jesus, I coughed, lifting up the device and feeling its weight, keeping it in my peripherals. Of course, facility guards were still an incredible risk, Mari continued. Godbearers hardly need to influence matter directly to destroy it. Subjects with more clever methods could easily crush a man with a ceiling collapse, or a secondary weapon like metal coils could be used to cut through the offending material. This is why the Daughters were developed. There is no way to compete with them. There is no longer a need for human guards. How? I stumbled, suddenly turning to look at her. How exactly do you know all of this? I thought you said you didn't remember much of anything past a few weeks ago. Everything is quite recent, actually, Mari wrote, meeting my eyes. There were never chances before Dahmer took over, never so many subjects in one facility, never such rapid advancements in technology. I first woke up as soon as she took over, but your question is still valid. How do I know about events before her time? She quickly scrambled off the bed, hopping like a deer as she made her way to her own bed, reaching under the mattress and pulling out a small spiral. She clutched it to her chest as she awkwardly shambled back over to me, tall form bending down as she handed it to me. Her mouth opened in a big, soundless smile. I took the book slowly, looking at the cover before quickly opening it in disbelief and rummaging through it. This, I stuttered, flipping faster. This is... a log of facility developments? How did you get this? She just folded her arms closer into her chest, excitedly nodding and taking it back before running back over to her bed and sliding it under. When she finally got back and picked up her clipboard, The phrase she wrote was enough to make my eye twitch. "I do not know," she wrote, followed by a large smiley face. "I had it when I awoke." "Well," I cried, exasperated, "then how did you—" Her finger pressed against my face, her soundless lips mouthing out the word, "Poke." Her face glimmered with joy. "I have a theory, though," she wrote. "I believe it is for the same reason I awoke with that stun gun." I looked to see it still sitting beside me, crawling with horrid waves. She flipped back to the page with the stick figure versions of me and her, smiling as question marks surrounded us. "I believe it is the reason I was not killed in the future with you," she wrote above it, pointing the arrow to me. "I must have survived because I had finally taken a step in the right direction, because I had finally done something right and needed to ensure the next time built off those successes and went further. Even if I cannot transfer over my memories from timelines, I somehow found a way to bring these two items. I believe their use is clear." I slowly picked up the taser, my heart beginning to pound. "They are to help you accomplish your goals," Mari wrote beside my stick figure, moving the pencil to widen my smile further. "Together," she mouthed, eyes sparkling with splattered turquoise as she pointed at me and then to herself. "Together," I echoed, finding myself mouthing the words silently as well, looking down at the weapon in my hand and then back to the journal under her bed. The journal with information about every development on the study of left hands since the facility was founded. Could we really do this? I still didn't know if I could believe all her ranting about alternate timelines and failed futures, but surely with her help and enough planning, at the very least I could survive this chance. And if she was somehow telling the truth, past and present timelines existing with a shaky ability to transfer between them, that meant Callie was alive somewhere.